Today we are talking about Splunk development and how it is helping us in the productivity. Tom has a very good session. I am not sure how many of you have attended. If you have not, please go and see the recording. It's pretty informative. So today I will be talking about how Splunk is helping us in the productivity space. So this is the same slide which is going to SplunkConf, so I'm just putting that for the third-party disclaimer. Little bit about me. I'm from Intuit. I'm principal engineer. I'm responsible for making other engineer productive, and that's my primary job. I work for most of the Intuit product. How many of you know Intuit? Oh, cool. And I play around a lot of tools because I need to make developer productive, primarily Java, Node, and then a lot of tools you could see that, and try to see that how we can use these kind of tools and make developer life easy. Now, I'm fortunate that with me, Tad will be sharing the session, and he's the original author for the Jenkins app, which I will be talking primarily. And I will be talking about certain use cases which we have used and we leverage on what Jenkins app is giving on top of that. So this is about the agenda. I will talk about that how this whole thing has started in the overview, how we are using the productivity enhancement in the development, and I am hoping that many of you will learn from this and you try to implement same or similar stuff. Then I will talking about that specifically in depth about Jenkins app, like how we are leveraging Jenkins app and how we are taking benefit out of that. And we are not only leveraging Jenkins app, we have built a lot of integration with other collaboration tools which will help us to take us little bit deep inside about that where and how we need to work on. And then last but not least, key takeaways. I think at the end you should know about that basic things which you can take out from this session. And then I will hand over to Tad when he will talk little bit in depth about that how the Jenkins app itself works, how to use and how to take best practices out of the Jenkins app. So little bit overview of the journey. So last year when I came in the Jenkins Conf, I got fortunate to attend one session like you in the Splunk Jenkins app. And I see that there is some synergy where something I was looking, can I solve with that? At that time we were struggling for specific build issues, how can we make our build stable? And like the Intuit, you might have the many Jenkins, many Splunk instances. Splunk is using for certain way, Jenkins is using for certain way. We do have a lot of stuff, but we try to see that how we can do a cross collaboration and try to get best of out of both the world. This is a little bit about my journey line, that how I started on this. It's exactly 1 year back. I first time came to know about Splunk Jenkins app, and now it's 1 year. We have not only used that, we made I think 10 releases, Ted, correct? 10 releases of the Splunk Jenkins app and the enhancement, as well as we have done a lot more integration on top of what Splunk Jenkins app do. And I think Tom and Splunk can talk about that. They are right now building a new app, which is a build analysis, which is the extension of this. And I'm hoping that everything will be helping you to measure productivity. So in specifically, I'm talking about one of the phase where in the development we have optimized and we measure the productivity and we improve the productivity. We did a webinar last year, and that's also open. We talk about in depth about that, and that was our first webinar. And then later I will talk about how we are gathering all this data which is Splunk Jenkins app provide. Along with that, how other tools, take example of Git, JIRA, and Workday or HR system, all those things, how we are combining them and taking a meaningful outcome. So the the first journey is about development, how we made the productivity enhancement in the development. And this was our goal, like how can we make a developer 10x productive? So before I go in depth, let me just give you a little bit the situation where we were. How many of you have a big monolith code base which has thousands, millions line of code? Okay, few, cool. How many of you know Jenkins Splunk integration? Okay, only you and me. So this specific thing or this storyline well resonate with that specific thing, where you have a huge code base and we have a huge code base which has a million line of codes. We have 400 plus developer which is keep checking the code in that specific repository. We have build time for 60 minutes. Our success rate is used to be 70 to 80%. We do have PR system, we do have CI system. All those things are there, but the thing is, the moment build break, it will be a war kind of scenario. We try to figure it out who's the engineer who break, try to figure it out how he can fix, is the environment issue, Nexus issue, Maven issue. We do all kind of stuff and then we finally figure it out and we fix it. And that was the process which was keep going. And we improvise a lot. 60 minutes actually came further down. But we have not got insight about that what and where we need to focus. So this is typical scenario, I think, which is very, very well resonate with that. So if you have a huge code base and you are building that, it will take time. So build time is one of the big issue. You really want to shrink that time, because if you shrink that time, developer will be able to make code change quickly and able to build it, especially when a Java kind of stuff. We are not talking about Node where everything will be so fast. Now, if there is a time we improve, there are issues with the failure. Failure, developer A will get, developer B will get. We need to know that what all those top failures. And if we know about the failure, and if developer is making mistake or environment has an issue or something which has a dependency system has an issue, we should be able to do the root cause. I think these are the three problem I could see that which is very, very well resonate with anyone who's working on big code base. Now, to get insight about the build time, the only thing what we need is we need a visibility. How can we get complete visibility of what all the phases we are doing, where and what operation we are doing, and where the time is going. So for that, we have written a separate plugin, which is a Maven plugin, and we attach that plugin as part of the build. Now, second thing, the problem is that we have many errors, and now errors are scattered. If we can categorize those errors, and if we can identify what all those problems this specific error belongs to, then we know that if this developer is facing this problem, how can we resolve them? And then the third part, which is about that if you know that this is a problem, this is the way how you resolve, one developer will share with the others, other will share with the third one, and then it become a crowdsourcing or some kind of a user contribution model where we'll try to find or identify all the problems which are there in the system and we address them. And this is what we have done. And this is our solution where we use a simple Java SDK of Splunk attached to the Maven plugin and added a part of the build system through POM dependency. And what it do is that at the end of the build, it get all the stats from that build and upload to the Splunk. And in this scenario, it upload to the Splunk Jenkins app, where we already collecting the information about the PR and CI. So this is how our solution look like. A developer, when he's working on the local machine, trying to do build, we gather the information. When he submit a PR, we gather the information. When finally the PR has been merged to the CI, we gather the information. We gather all the information. Now with this information, we are able to figure it out where the time is going, what all the top issues we are facing, and if there is a fix provided by developer X, how that can be shared with the Y. And This next screen will talk about that how we have done that. We have improvised from close to 70-80% success rate to 97% success rate, 97, 98. Last week we had a 1.4% failure, and that was because of Nexus environment issue. So now if you could see here, what we are gathering is that we figuring out that what's our success rate look like, how much time we are spending, and our focus was that to bring the time from 60 minutes to as early, because if we are able to finish in 15 minutes or 20 minutes, developer will get more time, PR will be fast, you will get fast result, right? So we did that. And then if you could see that the thing what we have called is a categorization, we did lot of categorization. Each single phase we broke, and we broke in a certain way where we can have some meaningful outcome. Take example, the compilation or test or something like that. So we got complete build cycle and brought down to 16 different phases. And then we tackle that specific phase, which phase is taking longer time. And then, as I mentioned, that we started doing categorization, so which is Maven error, which is Nexus error, which is engineer error, which is test error, which is compile error, and try to see that what pattern we are seeing. One of the things which we found that Nexus is one of the big bottleneck, or environment is a bottleneck. We fixed that. So like that, we started addressing top problems and try to fixing and reducing the time. Now, the other dashboard which you could see that, which actually talk about that how each phase has been captured. And now this information we are not only capturing for the CI and PR, we are capturing for the engineer. So that means if engineer wants to know something about that, how he can do? He can just go and say that how I can troubleshoot, I'm facing this specific problem. So in this scenario, we categorize that, and not everything is known. Everything will start from NA, not defined, right? And then from not defined, we'll try to define that and categorize that. And how if we categorize that, we'll say that how you can troubleshoot that. And once you troubleshoot that, then we'll make sure that others will follow the same process and they won't repeat the same or similar mistake. This is one of the thing which we have done. Now, any questions? So we are not attaching to ID, but it is as a Maven plugin. So it is attached to the build. So when you do Maven clean install, you will get that anywhere. Yeah. So right now we have added Maven Mojo, but it could be we can do that library port to the Gradle also. Given that SDK has Splunk SDK has a Gradle support. So now I think let me just take another step. How many of you have the test time measurement? Like how much time you put on the test? 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, hours? Okay. So this is one of the things, right? Like if you have hours, how you can break those hours to the lower number and lower number to the minutes, and later to further reduce. So one of the goal has been given to us is that take the single code check-in to the production in 45 minutes. How can you take a single check-in to the production in 45 minutes, given that you have big monolith application, right, which has a million line of code? So first thing is that you need to bring down the build time, which we did that the 15 minutes is the window we have. Now, excuse me. Now you need to make sure that you have, and this is not the only product. I think every company has many product, many projects, many Git repos, right? So tell me about one thing, like how many Git repos we have? Up to 100 in your company? 100 repos? 100 to 500? Thousands. Okay. So this is interesting, because if you have 1,000 repos, right, it is really important to know that which specific Git repo is doing good, which Git repo is not doing good, and how you will know that specific Git repo will produce three things: build, test, and deploy. So for a specific Git repo, if you can do the build, test, and deploy measurement, you are on top of that. Now, if you have 1,000 repo, it is really important that you should go and figure it out that which repo belongs to whom, right? So that is the power come where you need to start doing something called measurement, because you need to make sure that one Git repo, if it is producing the stuff in 45 minutes, another Git repo or the code base which is producing in hours, right? Where and what we can learn and how we can improve that. So this was our second goal, and this is the place we actually use Splunk Jenkins app heavily. So, and how we have done that is that, like, we have initially roll out a small POC where we see that can we take Jenkins app and we push one of our, take a Splunk and push a few of our Jenkins data. Can you share that, like, how's your Jenkins farm look like in a company? From 1 to 10 Jenkins instances, 10 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 1,000. So our fall in the 50 to 100 bucket, like we have that many Jenkins instance, and it is really important that you go and figure it out one specific build for one specific Git repo. Can we consolidate all the data? And this is what Jenkins app is actually doing that. So the problem here is that if I need to get about 1,000 Git repo, I need to know that I have many sources. I have Git as a one source. I have Splunk, the Jenkins as another source. I have my own HR system. I have JIRA. I have story time. I have bug. I have many sources. So can I combine everything? That is the place where we use Splunk Jenkins app, and we push all the Jenkins specific data to the Splunk. Now, the Jenkins data is not sufficient, right? There are, as I mentioned, that you have Git data, you have JIRA data, right? So you need to identify what all the gaps, and then you have HRM system. You need to know that which is my manager, which is my director, which is my VP, belongs to which Git repository, and that Git repository produce how many build, test, deploy. That is really important. So for that, we try to identify gaps and exposes and consume all the APIs and try to create integration. And then when you know that all those things available, can I create ownership and accountability? Because the moment you put ownership and accountability, things will move. If you say that the manager A is producing this kind X% of code coverage, and manager B producing B% of code coverage, now everything is open. Now A will try to see that how I can learn from B, or B will try to see that how I can see improvise further, right? So defining ownership and do the cross collaboration of various integration tool which I mentioned. So what we have come up is that we have consumed GitHub API, we have consumed JIRA API, we have consumed Workday API, and then from CloudBee Jenkins app, we push all this data to Splunk. Now Splunk becomes single source where we have all the data available. Now when we have all the data available, then you can do all kind of play around work, right? And this was our simple solution where we put our Workday data, we put JIRA, we put Git. And in Splunk, is anyone use lookup? Is anyone know lookup? So lookup is something like it is connecting two dots. Like if someone has a Git ownership, Git repository defined, and I have a owner for that Git repo, and from Jenkins, if I'm getting that Git repo, I can attach that for this test job, this Git repository, this is the owner. This is the way how lookup works. So we define many lookups, and those lookups will be built dynamically based on those API, which is going and fetching the data and producing those lookup. And then we connect all this data with the Splunk Jenkins where you have build, test, and deploy data. And then how we came up with something like that for our entire org. We have the data that what is our build time, and this is mock data, so don't think that we have this is the real truth. But for this presentation, I kept this data. So you could see that we have 54% as a, in this example, build success rate, entire org. I have close to 84% test success rate. And I think this is really important, right? You need to know that what's your success rate. I have information about how much is the coverage. Regarding coverage, I worked closely with the TED, and we made few coverage enhancement, because initially when Splunk plugin has been rolled out, it was supporting only bare minimum coverage plugin. Now we have a support for Jacoco, which was one of the long pole. And you could see that now we have the deploy time also. So now if I can go and figure it out that for build, I need to know that why my build time is 54%. I can get into the information, and those information has been actually coming from the Splunk. And Splunk is giving this information, and attached to that this build time is being divided among 5 VPs, 20 directors. Now I can go and figure it out that which specific the VP has the highest build success rate or the lower build success rate. I can go further and say that for that specific senior X, how many managers have the build success rate. Now from that, I can go and figure it out that which manager I need to tackle or which Git repo I have to tackle. And again, this is not a policing. This is not a policing, and this is we made first day clear. We are not doing policing. We really want to learn if someone is doing good, how we can leverage that stuff so that we can improvise further. So like that, you could see that you need to bring the data. The more you bring the data, you will identify a gap. The more you identify a gap, you will take action, and if you take action, you will definitely improve the productivity. Now, in the same example, I'm just going one level down. Now I figure it out that I'm looking for then one specific test job. I can go and see that can I get complete information that test job, I can get that, and then from here I can go to the Splunk Jenkins app. So we have created 2 interface on top of Splunk Jenkins app, and I think that is available now. I think build analysis, the new Jenkins app they are doing. And what it will do is that once you go into the Splunk Jenkins app, which Ted will cover in detail, that how and what all data is coming and how you can massaging and how you can reusing that specific data. A few takeaways. I was not aware about Jenkins app. I was sitting just like you last year. I know about that. I did some POC. I worked with the Splunk team, and we have some kind of solution which is actually helping and adding a lot of value. Splunk we were using mainly in the application log, and this is the primary thing. Everyone is doing that. But in last couple of years, we have started using Splunk for many things. We are not only pushing the data, we are pulling the data, we are integrating in a test, we are integrating the deployment. We are doing for a lot of other information which Splunk is doing. And the Jenkins, again, the source of truth, everything we are doing is around Jenkins. So we are using cloud-based Jenkins from the last couple of years, and it has given a lot of value. So at this note, I will invite Ted and talk in detail about the Splunk Jenkins app. Ted.
Thanks for starting the sharing using Splunk to boost product activity. I think some of you may want to know more about how the plugin works, and I will share how the plugin and app works. At last, I also want to share how the Jenkins pipeline was working at Splunk. Here is the overview for the plugin. Thanks for the Jenkins code developer. There are some extension points well organized. So as us, the plugin developer can just implement the extension point, and also the interface to select the date and to massage the date. So we implement some listeners such as run listener and queue listener, control log filter, and security listener. For the run listener, it's just listening for the job events. For example, when you trigger a job, you can get a start event. When the job finishes, get a completed event. On the start, we can get who triggers the user and what's the job parameter. And if the job is using some SMs such as Git, we can get the Git information such as Git repo, Git branch, and Git commit. For the control log filter, we just send the Jenkins build control logs near real time to Splunk. And at last, we provided some DSR to allow user to massage the date, or user can inject some customized metadata. So all the listeners will call Splunk log service. The service put all the log and metadata to a queue. We have some workers running in the background to pull data from queue and send it to Splunk by the HTTP input. So user can just look up the data using Splunk search head and run some queries. That's all. So since most listeners just work as on demand, so you don't need to write a code. So the config is very simple. So here's the config page. You can just input the Splunk indexer, hostname, and port, and the token, and do a test. If the test passes, so all set. So the Jenkins will be connected to the Splunk. All your build events and such as test results. If you have code coverage enabled, the code coverage detailed and summary will also be sent to Splunk automatically. I will talk more about the build events you may interested. The build events has some build calls. For example, who triggers the build, and the build may be triggered by another job. It's called upstream job, and we extract the other information such as the start time, end time, and build parameters. If the job is Jenkins 2 pipeline job, we can also extract some pipeline stage information and pipeline steps information. For example, if your job called 10 stage, we will cover all the 10 stages, start time, end time, so you can analyze it. You can get overview about the whole stage. For the massage the build events, we provided a DSL. You can just call the Splunking, the global variable, to do something. We have a wiki page to cover detailed information. Here's just an overview about the data sent to Splunk. As you can see, we had some test summaries, and for each test case, we have pass, fail, and select trees. For the console log, we captured the job console log and JDK logger, and the node. If you're using Jenkins nodes, we also capture the node log. For example, you can set some alerts when the node got some problem. For example, launch failure. We also capture some healthy metrics for the Jenkins master, such as heap memory, and thread count, and queue time, and queue number. Next, I will talk a little about the app. The app has build analysis, test analysis, and Jenkins audit and Jenkins health. And you can also view the detailed logs on the app. At last, I want to share some lessons learned when we do migrating freestyle job to pipeline jobs. Right now, we are using Docker to build as the primary source. We run a single master using a homebrew Docker plugin to run more than 2,000 builds concurrently, and the Jenkins master can just use less than 4 GB memory. We implemented some async step, use lightweighted executor, and most jobs was running in Docker, and we also need to run some tests which cannot be run in Docker, such as window tests and other security tests. We also use source labs for cross-browser tests. Okay, most pipeline job, the great boost is we can resume the Jenkins master if we want to plugin upgrade. And most steps were implemented in the async step, so you don't need to attach slave. It's very lightweighted. And we use a lot of share libraries. The share library can be used to share different teams. They have some common requirements. We extract the common requirement and set some common function. So the Jenkins file can be very simple. It can be just 2 lines, such as import the share library and call Splunk build app. Splunk build app just build most Splunk apps developed in Splunk. In the share library, we provided some global variables. The global variable is just gave some abstract about the previously Jenkins freestyle job. Such as we can just provide some runner to run some npm yarn or some pytest test. So next, I want to talk more about the lesson learned. I think you may be more interested. The first thing when we do the migration is we encounter some issue about file minutes limit on the CPS main thread. At first, we implement many heavy lift tasks in the share library, but hit some exceptions, and it's just a limitation in CPS thread. And the recommendation is if you want to do heavy lifting, you had better to write a step. You can just implement the step execution and call some thread pull to the heavy lifting and return forward to tell Jenkins is a async step. Another thing I want to share is resume error. Most Jenkins pipeline jobs can be resumed safely, but not all. When we do migration, we didn't take much care and encounter some issues. For example, some transition fields cannot be restored, and some step was not implemented correctly, and the checkpoint was not added. And we also use some store some variables which cannot be deserialized, such as env. Simple example is, as you can see, we call some env build number if the if the Jenkins master gets restarted during runtime, the build number may be null because EMA cannot be resumed. Next thing is previously we used many environment variables in the job, such as git URL, git branch, but in the Jenkins pipeline, no such thing. So at first, we work around using a shell script, do the checkout, and use the git command line to get the git branch and git URL, but it's tedious, so our project need to call the script. So such thing can be easily implemented in an environment contributor. So we can just implement the environment contributor and put the build environment, for example, a git branch in it. That's all. Thank you. Any question?
Yeah, sure. Pardon? So Jacoco, you have, so as part of the build, if Jacoco has been enabled, your job will produce a metadata. And that metadata will be sent to the Splunk Jenkins plugin. Now in the Jacoco, there is a problem. The latest version of 0.9, so there is a specific version. Jacoco is not backward compatible. So you need to make sure that the Jacoco, what your build is producing, versus what is installed in the Splunk Jenkins app and what is supported by Jenkins. So all three needs to be higher than 0.9,
yeah,
right?
Because
1.9.
Yeah, because there are backward compatibility of the Jacoco binary format.
Pardon? Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, till date we used to do that, but the problem in the Sonar is that again you have another data source, right? Right. You again need to go to Sonar and try to see that. Yeah.
How long did it take for you from the concept to the complete implementation? And along the way, when did you see the ROI?
Yeah. So it took, I think, first convincing is a big problem because Splunk has been Splunk as well as Jenkins have their own admin, right? So I did. So Splunk provide, and Tom, you can correct me. Splunk provide a license for 10 gig or 50 gig for the developer. I have the installation on my machine, and the Jenkins also provide the instance. So I set it up, I tried it out, and my POC was working fine. Then I have convinced one of the Jenkins admin, then convinced one of the Splunk admin to install those and started getting that. It took, I think, 3-4 months to get the value, and then we built that plugin, which will start showing the value that, yeah, you have to work on these few things to improvise the productivity.
Yeah. The plugin is totally free. It's open source. You can just download from the update center.
So yeah, so this specific one is Splunk app for Jenkins,
Yeah.
And then they have, I think, Splunk has many app, and you might be talking about. Tom, you want to take that?
Sure. So I come from Splunk. We do have a new app coming out called Splunk for Build Analytics that looks at Jenkins plus SonarQube, and we have other ones under development with our partners, sometimes internally. There are some partners like to monetize there, so they make them available in their own stores. The main thing at Splunk is you get the data in, then building the analytics, building the queries, building the dashboards is the easy part. It pretty much, and once you get the data in, you start seeing, oh, I can also get more value if I can correlate with this other data. But so that all of the apps in the Splunk marketplace called SplunkBase are free. There's no charge for them.
So you are saying that this will be integrated with SonarQube also?
SonarQube, yes. If you come by the booth, you can see that that's pulling data from there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What version is this ambient understood?
Can you repeat what version of?
What version of Splunk has this dashboard?
It supports Splunk 6.3 to latest version.
Yeah.
So one of the features that came out of the box is console logs, Jenkins logs. So what, I guess, what value or what, what do you, what sort of data do you extract from that? I get the, queue metrics and stuff like memory utilization, but why would you also want us console logs?
Yes, so when Jenkins is pushing the data to Splunk, it push in many indexes, and you can add on top of that. We mainly leverage the metadata or the console log. There is another feature which Splunk Jenkins has, that if you want anything in your workspace, a specific file or specific configuration you want to send, you can send, and that will also be indexed. But Ted, you want to add?
Yeah, I want to share a usage about console log. For example, your build may use some tool. The tool may just release a new version, and you found just a lot of jobs filled. You may not sure. You want to make sure if it's caught by the new version, you can just look up the console logs, count the errors, and today, and previous day, you can get overview. So you can get the error boost at that day, the new version release. So you know it's caused by new version.
One of the things which we did is that based on console log, we got the idea that if we have all this thing in console log, can we categorize? So then we started categorizing in Splunk, and then we said that it is not scalable, so we wrote our own plugin, and we tried to put the information in more granular and more categorization manner, and then we are taking the value out of that. Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you for that.